Yeah, last year.
2 years ago, a couple of people. Have you guys done a little bit more with Gundam since then? A little bit. I know it's hard to find Gundam and Gunpla out there because the supply lines have been really bad.
It's amazing.
So that's why this panel this time around is going to be more focused around taking what you have and making it a better item, making it more worthwhile. It's fun to straight build. It's fun to just put something together, put it on the shelf. But it's also fun to put a little bit of love into something and make it really shine and then feel really good about that.
Good about them damage builds.
Oh yeah, that's how you cover up your mistakes.
It's not mistakes, it's art.
It's hard.
Sure, you call it whatever you want, but
I like that.
you can do that. You are allowed to do that. You could be wrong, but you can do that.
It's not mistakes, it's art.
I like that actually. You're not getting any credit for it.
Oh.
It's mine now. It's mine now. Well, now it's been restolen.
It wasn't copywritten in anything.
The glory be ever. So, how many people in here have built the kit before? Oh wow.
Good.
Awesome. That's
how many people have built a kit that isn't a Gundam? Okay.
still awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Awesome.
Warhammer tabletop gaming? Anybody out there? 1, 2.
Tanks, planes,
Military
cars,
models?
military models, figures, anything like that. Anything that requires more than just general snap building.
Who does resin? Who works with resin?
Looky
We're on the
there.
same wavelength right there. This guy knows what's up.
Wow. Big shit. So, if you haven't gathered, Gundam model kits are really, really easy to build generally. It might take a little bit of time, it might take a little bit getting used to, but Gundam, yeah, I'm sure. That's what you get for doing last minute. Gundam kits are actually pretty easy to build compared to a lot of other kits. If you ever go into, like, say, an old traditional model kit, like a car or a tank or a plane, or even crazier, and you go into like resin figures, like static figures, you've got a lot of work ahead of you. So with a Gundam kit, you just clip it out, sand off the nubs, cut off the nubs, and slap it together, and it's already colored. You're good to go. Bandai kind of indulges its builders, its player base, its fan base, its buyer base, because they've only gotten better and better with engineering as time goes by. So their kits are really well put together and they're all friction fit. So you just snap them together and they're already colored. You're good to go. You don't have to do anything else. Now, like Dom said earlier, a good chunk of this panel is going to be focusing on some of the things that you can do to enhance that if you really like something, but you say, well, I feel like it's a little bit lacking. Or you look at the box art and then you look at your kit and you're like, this doesn't quite line up. Like this is not bad out of the box, but I feel like it could look cooler if it looked more closer to what's on the box. Because with any other model kits, you look at what's on the box and that's not what you're getting. You're getting all single color plastic in like tan or gray, and a lot of times you have to glue it. You have to, with some of the older kits, you gotta do seam filling. You gotta do matching on the sides. You gotta do modifications to fix problems that the actual manufacturer has made, which is, I mean, it's part of the hobby. It's a maker's hobby now. You can, like you said, you can do whatever the heck you want to. It's pretty great. You can just straight build it. We got a friend that's in our group that he straight builds them. He doesn't clean them up at all. You look at them close and they got nubs everywhere. He doesn't care. He enjoys looking at them and he enjoys building them, and that's fun. Everybody gets something different out of this hobby. But like I was saying earlier, you can put quite a lot more work into them. You can sit there and just enjoy things with a single kit for them. You could spend a couple of months on a single kit just making it look really nice and make it end up with a art piece, like an actual, honest to God, what you could honestly say is an art piece by the end of it. So,
All right. So now that Dustin has filled some time for me.
yeah.
Now that he's filled some time while I was handing out tickets because I was
Yes.
snacking.
Yes.
So first off, welcome back to San Japan after a year-long break. Woo! Yeah! Yeah! All right! That's the energy. And then then thank you for coming out to our Gunpla Expanding Your Quarantine Hobby. Again, as I said earlier, most of us had a Gundam kit or a few model kits. We had some downtime, unfortunately. It was a rough year. So we spent that by keeping ourselves distracted with whatever we could find. Some of us picked up new hobbies, such as Gundam model kits, bicycling, baking tons of bread, and gaining a little bit of weight because of it. But it was fun, and we all figured out something new that we loved. So today, what we're going to do is expand on that. We're going to focus a little bit more onto the detailing aspect of it, bringing your creation to life, making it look like at any point in time, your tiny little model kit can come to life, and it would seem like it actually is a part of our world. So with that, let's get started. My name is Dom. I am one of the admins for the San Antonio Gundam Association here local in town. This is Dustin. He is our group president. Yeah! And this is Chris. He is one of our resident members. He is a fantastic scratch builder as well. This piece of work that I'll show up on camera here soon was one that he's been working on for how long?
For about 3 months. It's been on hiatus for about 2 years now.
So a little over 2 years of work and then 3 months of really putting it together and making it come alive. I saw this when he was piecing it together and it blew my mind seeing it today finished. I had no idea he was going to have it ready. So with that, let's get started. Thank you. I may not have been close enough. Can you hear me out there like this?
Yeah.
Wow, it sounds so quiet. Okay. It is because you're loud. Excuse me, I need a little bit of water. So first off, as I said, Gunpla is freedom. So a quick breakdown of what we're going to do today. We're going to show you some of the tools you use to get started. Just kind of a refresher. Panel lining, basic seam line removal, top coating, simple details and weathering. Then we're going to get into some of the more advanced stuff. 3D printing, which is becoming a big thing nowadays. Super affordable for the average consumer. And there are a ton of things out there for it. The last time we weren't sure about it, we weren't touching it because it was still relatively new. And then we're going to get into our detailing demo. As you can see, we do have a nice little setup right here. Sort of. It works. But we do have a kit. We're going to show you the differences of a full build that's detailed on one side and plain plastic on the other, so you can really see a good comparison of what a little bit of love and a little bit of time and effort will do. Whew. Yeah, it's just been a while. I'm getting used to it all again. It feels good to be back up here. I like walking around, but it feels good to be back out here now.
Honest to goodness, we really appreciate you guys coming. It's really encouraging to see a lot of people coming in and being like, hey, this is my hobby too. I want to see what somebody has to say about it. Because, I mean, the last 2 San Japans that we did, we've had this panel, and, well, not this one, we've had a beginner's panel, and we still had a packed house. Because even though it was just beginner stuff, people wanted to see what was up. Because they thought like we did and thought we don't see Gundam panels around. So
it is really exciting to see a almost packed room here because that means a lot of people really want to see what else they can do. All right, so that one we're going to go into the tools of the trade. Just show you some simple things here. So side cutters, X-Acto knives, a nice sharp X-Acto knife. Use a dull one, you're going to cut yourself. Simple tweezers. Sanding strips, you can use emery boards from Walmart, HEB, whatever, just go to the nail section, get those. A Gundam marker, Q-tips, cotton swabs, they sell tons of them now, and then a kit, of course.
you don't need the kit.
You don't need the kit, you just kind of sit there
And just work with tools.
work with tools and just let your mind run.
Huh?
3D printing, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
3D
yeah,
printing,
I
exactly.
guess.
Well, it's still a kit then, you're making something.
You are putting effort into making it, designing it, but, I mean, then you have to paint it, and that's a different skill set. You can paint these, I mean, if you don't want to paint them, then you're not going to 3D print them.
Exactly.
I've done that.
He does.
Yeah.
So here we're going to just show some of the simple panel lining techniques. A lot of kits nowadays have a lot of detail. A simple Gundam marker, a simple wash using some watered down acrylic. You can just line your model kit and that'll make it look so much more realistic. It's adding depth It's adding a little bit of extra detail between the panel lines. And if you make any mistakes, you can use a Q-tip as well to wipe it off, get rid of that excess, because you don't want these big bold lines unless that's what you're going for. If you want like an animated style model kit that looks like it came out of the show, big bold lines are great. If you don't have if that's not your thing, if that's not what you're looking for, then you want more realistic, you definitely want to wipe off some of the excess and get a nice, subtle shading. I don't remember this video being that long. Yeah, it's all right. I think we're pretty good time. Yeah, for sure. Yes?
Is this like a gel pen? Do you have to wait for it to dry, or does it dry?
It dries very quickly. It's almost like a watered down permanent marker.
I wouldn't suggest using like a permanent marker or Sharpie on a kit, especially unless you like clear coat them, because whatever's in them, it'll make the plastic kind of brittle and crack eventually. But this is literally a Gundam panel liner pin. They make them in black, gray, and brown. Usually if you want to go really bold, you go with the black. If you want to be really subtle and kind of make it look more natural, you go with the gray. And then the brown can be really neat for kind of highlighting stuff that has earth tones like reds, yellows, browns, greens, off-whites, stuff like that. You can find these a lot of times in most places that you'll find Gundam kits for sale. And it's the size of a pin. It's not extra large, and they're blue, and then they have a colored cap based on what color they are. And most places that sell Gundam kits will probably sell them because they're cheap to get. It's just a matter of getting a hold of them.
And that's just entry line stuff too. I mean, that's the bare bone basics. The black, the brown, the gray. I mean, that's the simple starting stuff. There's not much to it after that if you want to just stick with Gundam markers. Now they do a whole line of like an acrylic Gundam pen, which is kind of like a paint marker. That they have tons of colors for. They have little packages that are set around the exact kit you're painting. So if you want to do like the fan favorite Zaku 2, that nice green grunt suit, they have a whole line of kit markers that let you.
It's a package.
Yeah, it's a whole package. Yeah, it's a whole package that lets you achieve that actual color consistency you would get out of the show.
So like if you end up like clipping off too much and you end up with some serious marks on your kit, the pack actually will have both shades of green, the brighter red, the darker red, I think a gray and maybe a black or something like that. And it's literally just matches to that kit. And they've got one for the Gundam, one for the Barbados Gundam from Iron Glittered Orphans, one for like, they've got like a Seed pack and a Seed Destiny pack, and all sorts of stuff.
So what you're seeing here, when I said wipe away the excess, I was using a little bit of enamel thinner. It is a strong thinner, and it will also crack your model kit if you put too much on it. It'll eat through the plastic and make it super brittle, and it'll just fall apart. So use small amounts on a Q-tip, let it dry off a little bit, and then use it in a ventilated area. You kind of want to be coherent when you're painting. You don't want to really go for an abstract art piece because the fumes are getting to you.
The other thing to know about paneling, for anybody that's not done it, it's a really simple process, because I remember when I first went to do it, I wasn't really sure where to start. I was like, what do I do? And I looked at the picture, I looked at the thing, and I was like, oh, you just follow the lines. You just get in anywhere that there's an edge, anywhere that there's kind of where 2 points meet, where you've got a crevice, and you just line that stuff.
If you learn how to color as a kid, you can panel line.
Yeah, you just follow the lines of whatever you've got. Anything that's indented, you can panel line it in, and it'll make the details really pop.
So the next bit we're going to get into is some seam line removal. Now those are the little bits of gaps you get from connecting 2 shoulder pads on a model kit. You know, it makes it easy to put it together, it makes it easy to paint, but overall you're left with a kit that has this nice defining line right through its shoulder. So a simple, easy technique on how to get rid of that would be to fill the crack with a little bit of glue when you put it together. A little bit of extra than you normally would. You mash it together, hold it tight, and what that'll do then is melt the 2 pieces together, and then you can just sand off the excess when it dries. So that gap right there, you don't want that on your kit, especially if you're starting to paint and do a little more detailing work. It'll also rip apart any decals or stickers you put on it. It'll make it hard to stick.
So what he's talking about there is you can gap fill like that with super glue if you want. but what a lot of guys use is actually, I guess the technical term would be cement. If anybody's ever messed or seen somebody mess with PVC pipe, it's essentially the same thing. You're using the same thing. It's something that it's not actually glue. You're actually putting on what amounts to like a certain strength of thinner that kind of melts the plastic a little bit, and whenever you push it together, it'll literally liquefy the plastic on both sides. So then it pushes it up, and then once it cures, the two parts are one piece, and then you sand off the excess, and it's one piece now. You don't have any visible gap anymore because it's no longer two pieces.
And nowadays you can go instead of holding it together to let it set, you can go to Harbor Freight Tools or even a dollar store and just buy some cheap clamps just to hold it together and let it do its thing. Things we get online is a dollar store now. There's so many things.
I haven't seen them at the dollar store.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
See? Yes.
How long does it normally take to set?
So depending on what type of glue you're using, there's some that is specifically for plastic model kits. After about a minute, it'll set it in place, let it dry for about a full hour, let it cure, and then you can sand off the excess.
I mean, shoot, if you really want to go slapdash, it'll probably cure in like half a minute, and you can probably mess with it in 5 if you really don't want to go slap. And everybody finds different things. Like he does that. A lot of the times when I cement stuff together, I'm doing it. I'm sanding on it within like 5 or 10 minutes. Sometimes they cure really quick, especially if you don't use a ton, because the more you use, the longer it's going to take to evaporate.
When I cement stuff, I usually wait about at least 24 hours just so I know if I can cure it.
And see, like I said, different viewpoints from 3 different people. With me, I'm scratching an itch. With him, he's focusing down on stuff, and with him, he's somewhere in the middle ground.
Now you know why it took him 2 years to go back in.
Yeah. You had a question?
I did, about the panel line.
Yes.
I feel like I don't know on Gundam stuff on Instagram. I'm going crazy getting over it.
Oh, yeah.
But I see them, it looks like they take a flat model almost. I don't see in the photo any scenes of premises, and then there's all these panel lines in the next photo. Is that just something they're going creatively, or?
You're actually getting ahead of us. We're going to cover that a little bit later, because that's actually a very good point, and we're going to cover that a little bit later in some of the slightly more advanced stuff that we're going to talk about.
Definitely, taking a flat plane and putting a little more detail is more advanced technique, and I've just now gotten the hang of it. After 6 years of building recently.
But yeah, we'll cover that later, and if it didn't answer your question, then please, by all means.
So we'll go back more into some of the seam line removal just to show you after it's cured and dried, just some of the sanding. If you're going to fully paint the kit, it's not going to matter how rough the sanding is, because you can sand it down to a smoother consistency on top as well. And then the primer will cover a lot of the mistakes you make.
Yeah.
For primer, do you use like a car body primer, or?
Ooh, there are so many different primers out there now, depending on how you paint, because there's a lot of, you watch, the YouTube builders, the Instagram builders, there are some that are very hand heavy when they paint, or they only hand paint, and they get a really good thick coat on there. When you do stuff like that, you can't really move the kit because it'll scrape it off. You can use an aerosol primer from like Testers, Tamiya, Mr. Color, Mr. Hobby, stuff like that. What do you use?
I generally use a Vallejo primer, but if you do use an auto primer, which is possible, I don't recommend like blasting it.
So generally with like primering and painting your kits, you can do it with just about anything you see, but the difference is if you go with something that's hobby-based like Vallejo, like Mr. Hobby, like Tamiya, you're going to pay more for the cans, but that's because they have a higher alcohol content, so they're made to dry a little bit quicker. And on top of that, they're more highly aerosolized. So basically, the particles are thinner, so it lays down better. If you go, you can paint a kit in Rust-Oleum or Krylon, but you're going to have to be super careful because it lays on thick very quickly. So you have to kind of take some distance. Anytime you primer a kit or paint it with like a rattle can or even an airbrush, you're going to want to start the spray off the kit and then pass over it and then let go of the button and then do light passes, because and that doesn't matter whether you're using something that's like a super high-end hobby paint, which still isn't that expensive, or whether you're going like with something that you got that's Krylon from Walmart. You're going to want to go in light passes either way. And you definitely don't want to get too close, because if it pools on there, then you're basically going to have to kind of wipe it off and start again. Yeah.
Tons. I mean, if you get an primers. I use MIG ammo, I use mission models. Generally,
Right?
Hmm?
Mission model.
No, mission model is a US-based one, not local. I use mission models because they have a polyurethane additive that they mix into their primer, and their thinner that they use actually activates more chemicals in it, and it basically makes it harder to rot. You could prime it, let it cure overnight, throw it at a wall, and you're not going to see a scratch on there. Whereas other things like the earlier layout paints, you look at it the wrong way and the primer would scratch off. Yeah, so there's, and airbrushing is a whole different thing too. There's so many different ways to do it.
The key to primering, the key to painting, as far as like aerosol paint, whether you're using an airbrush or an aerosol can, spray paint, either way, is you go light and you get some distance. You don't want it, and if you go over it a few times and it's still not that you can still see the original color, like you can see bright ass red and you're trying to paint this sucker black, you just let it dry and then you go over with another pass and you keep doing it until it's done. Because if you go on and try to get it in one go, it's going to look really thick. It's going to look like you painted it on with a big child's brush, you know. So that's really the key to it. Just distance and taking your time with it. There you go.
So what I'm showing here is once you've sanded it, once you built the gap, you can use a toothpick to kind of feel if you've missed anything. You can use your nails, sometimes it doesn't catch right, but a toothpick or another pinpoint instrument will give you a good feel if you've missed it or you need to go back and refill it or put a little bit of extra. You can also use a little bit of putty. Don't do Bondo, toothpick. Mia makes putty, Mr. Color makes putty, stuff like that.
I think you can find a tube of Mr. Putty. It's
Yeah.
just a little tube of putty in Hobby Lobby like right now. You might can find it in Michael's, but I don't know that you can reliably. Actually, Hobby Lobby sells a few small modeling things that you can find that are actually more based around Gundam stuff. But they carry Gundam kits now too.
Just in the past, almost off topic, Dustin is usually much more energetic. Like, we can't get him to stop talking at our little meetups we have every week. He is so quiet today. It's like a different person here. It's kind of weird. He's like, I had to point that out because I'm so used to you like, now we reverse roles.
Yeah.
So the next one, we're going to focus on top coating, putting that nice varnish layer on top. What I would recommend, most people, the general rule almost is, if you're going to put decals or anything on it, you want to put a nice gloss coat. Same with panel lining, you want to put a nice gloss or at least a satin finish on it. That'll help the panel line washes bleed through with the capillary effect. So if you're not using a marker, you can use a wash and that'll bleed all the way through. You can also do, decals tend to stick a little bit better to a top coat than they do just basic paint.
They tend to stick better to the gloss coat that from everything I've ever read. Don't ask why, because I couldn't tell you. No, nothing I've read really told me why, but if you're gonna do decals and stuff, lay down a gloss clear coat first, and they'll stick better. No idea why, but it works.
It does.
And then after, once you're done, you can put down whatever kind of finish you want. You can go with another gloss if you want to keep it shiny. You can go with a matte if you want it to look toned down and you don't want it to be like a super shiny kid's brand new toy.
Yeah.
So,
Again, one of these, if you can, paint outside, but we live in Texas. For the most part, anybody live outside the state that's here? One phone. The guy that's videoing everything for us lives in Colorado and came down for this. He has a different thing to worry about with altitude. But here, the humidity is killer. I mean, even being inside, you still kind of feel a little bit of it. So using aerosolized sprays outside, especially matte coats, gloss coats, they will fog up.
they'll leave multiple different effects on your kit, from something called orange peel, which looks physically like the texture you see on an orange, all the way down to just fogging up on clear coats. And plus, besides all that, who really wants to paint outside right now in this heat? Show of hands. That's what I thought. No one. No one
I
wants
saw
to.
one hand over there kind of go for a second, and I was like, oh,
You're insane. You can't go do that. None of us
I've
want
got
to
a
do
lot of
that.
kids for you to paint outside then.
Yeah, we got some work for you. No, everyone would rather paint inside in this kind of weather. Find you a paint booth.
Yeah.
Find you a paint booth.
They're cheap.
You got to do a little bit of research, but I mean, it's worth it because you start to understand why they work the way they do.
Right.
I know that I think you can find one online from Walmart that literally kind of folds down into a suitcase for some reason, and I've heard good things about it.
That's the
It's
one I
got,
use.
yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Like online.
Yeah.
A lot of stores have stuff that you find online that you won't ever find in the store. One time I found stuff on clearance, like on Sears' website. It was Armored Core Model Kits, which is a niche video game that I used to play that's based around modular mech games. And you can't find those anywhere. I've seen one in the dealer's room of the latest ones that they did like 5 years ago. So you can find all sorts of stuff online from stores that you wouldn't ever think that you could see in person.
Yes.
So, if you're liking something like, do you have, like, any kits in mind?
Oh, that's neat.
So if you live in Colorado, you can get a Gundam kit at Walmart.
Yeah. See, lately here in town, usually I kind of lately have been playing Warhammer 40K in a store that's in Crossroads Mall, right there on Fredericksburg, and the Target that's right next door has a few Gundam kits that you can buy. Target has started carrying all sorts of neat stuff, including Gundam kits, and I think a few Gundam figures too. If you're more about I just kind of want the figure, which is fine.
And for the most part, as far as like airbrush boot, check online. You can find them on Amazon. Everybody orders from there now because it's quick, easy. That's where I got mine. 2 days is here, it works. Just have a window nearby because you can run a vent hose to it and suck all the fumes out outside, like nature deal with it, unfortunately. But again, you don't want to, discombobulate yourself with all these noxious fumes. It's not a good thing. Actually, this one's So again, 2 years ago, if you were at our panel, which a few of you were, we didn't really get into 3D printing because it was new and it was kind of a taboo in the model kit world. And now nobody cares. 3D printing's everywhere. Everybody 3D prints. They're 3D printing steaks. Yeah, it's not good. It doesn't taste good, but they've done it. 3D printing organs. They're 3D printing parts of weapons, cars, everything's 3D printed. Homes. And now for a couple $100, you can buy a 3D printer, put it in your room, and make a conversion kit for a Gundam you've never had. Make weapons, make little hangers to put your Gundams in on display. I mean, you can do tons of stuff. I'll show up on do that in a bit. But you have two different types of 3D printers. You've got your resin, which is my personal favorite. That's going to be the one on the left-hand side with a nice red shroud. That's where you get a lot of your really highly detailed parts. It's definitely more...
It's more conducive to small scales.
Yeah.
So you got two differences between your printers, right? The one on the left, like you said, is resin. The one on the right is a plastic printer. Plastic printer is what most people knew about when they first heard about a 3D printer. It just takes your image, slices it into 1,000 or 100,000, whatever different sizes, layers, and it prints it out, lays down a layer at a time until it's done. And when you're done, you have a figure that looks nice, but you have a lot of layers on it. You can tell. And you can use more plastic to make it look better and go thinner on the layers, but it uses a lot more plastic. Then you grab resin. And the way the resin thing does, it's really kind of neat, because rather than laying down a layer at a time, what it does is it uses UV reactive resin. You've got a tray that has a clear bottom, and it has an LCD screen, right? And so then, what it does is it takes down the plate, lowers it down into the resin, and it cures the first layer at like a minute or two to make sure that it sticks to the plate. And it literally just shows up a white shape in the white image in the shape of your first layer, and it cures the resin that way. And then it pulls it out after it turns out the light, and then it drops it down again, and then it lays out an image in the shape of your next layer. And in that way, it eventually pulls the figure out of the resin by curing it one layer at a time, until when you're done, you've got your figure upside down hanging from your plate. It's really kind of neat, because it's not laying it out of it's not putting it out of a nozzle like the plastic ones. It's just laying it down into a vat and just curing it by shape with light, one layer at a time. And when you're done, depending on what you use, in my opinion, you should really look for like water washable type resin. It's all I've ever used, and I've had to deal with resin that does that is alcohol cleanable, you don't want to deal with it.
See, I don't like the water stuff. I think the texture feels differently. I like I use isopropyl alcohol 91% concentrate, and I just dunk the model in there and I give it a bath. I wear gloves, I ventilate it, and I like what I get out of there more. Now it's definitely more difficult to dispose of because you have to seal it, you have to tape it shut, and you've got to trash it. You can't pour it down a drain, it'll smell like resin for the next 2 weeks. You can't dump it down anything, you have to throw it out, it has to be tossed into the garbage heap.
Yeah, but no one's like you said, besides that, like you said earlier, no one's caring anymore because now people can make what we've never gotten as kids. People are making conversion kits to turn Gundams, and they have been doing it for years from third-party companies, but they're managing to make conversions to make the kits they always wanted to make that Bandai never released, or third parties never released sometimes even. Or they're designing their own things to make their own custom creations, which it does. I've had this discussion with a few people before. It takes just as much time and effort to design 3D parts or a 3D figure or a 3D kit. It's just a different set of skills. People have looked down on it before because they're like, well, it's not the traditional way. Well, honestly, times change. I have 1 plastic printer and 4 resin printers at home. I do. I make decent money as an electrician's apprentice for the union. Like I make decent money, but I haven't used them that often. For me, the part of this hobby that I like the most is actually kit bashing. I like making things. I like building things. I could take some time to learn the programs, but it just kind of bores me. Eventually, I'm going to do it. Eventually, I'll get around to learning better. I can do the most basic things. I can take a file and I can print it out. I can't design my own things yet. But for me, the enjoyment comes from looking through and trying to find the right parts off of the right kits to make what's in my head become a reality. And the physical need of, like, say, if anyone's ever done carpentry or metalworking or anything like that, it's very similar because it's the enjoyment of crafting something with your hands. Or if you've ever worked with clay, or if anybody's an artist and they've ever like actually sketched something out and then gone over the lines, and it's a similar thing. Now, some people, they'll get more enjoyment out of being able to design the thing because they're like, well, I don't like those skills, or I don't have those skills, but I have computer skills and I can make it come to life a different way. And that's completely valid.
And then people like me, I don't have the time to sit down and design anything, so I'm more than happy to pay somebody else to do it for me and then just print it out myself.
Yeah.
So like right here on the left-hand side, if you're a Gundam Wing fan, you recognize the Leo. It is, yeah. It is the grunt suit of the
One
Gundam
person
universe.
that was
Yeah.
amazing.
Somebody grew up in the 90s.
Yeah.
But somebody printed or customized the tall piece and turned it into a Leo with a free conversion kit. You can just download it and print it if you have the right printer. You don't have to pay for it. They just gave it away.
That's a master grade skill,
Yeah.
for sure.
That is
And for anybody that knows their kits at all, that we just recently got within the last year, we got a high grade master grade, high grade Leo kit. We don't have a master grade of it. Tall piece, you could do it with a few simple mods, and somebody did it.
Or like with that, the other one being the 3D printed hangers to display. A lot of people want these big manufacturing bases. They want to show their Gundams being worked on. Having it on a shelf is cool, but having it look like it's alive is even better. Any G Gundam fans? That's better than the Gundam Wing. I like that. So you're going to love this one. This is my personal favorite. It exists.
The best Gundam. Didn't have a single loss for the first half of the tournament.
So somebody felt the need to make another Gundam.
The mighty.
And I absolutely said, I need that. I paid for it. I printed it out. I got it here. It's fantastic. And it uses the RX-782 HG Revive kit. So it uses a $14 model kit that you can buy at Target. They have it now.
As the base.
Yeah. And you just slap these parts on, and now you have your very own Nether Gundam, which they did the action figure of way back, but they never did a model kit. So I just love watching that where he comes up and looks like everything's all hunky-dory and then boom, Gundam. Oh, and
So many amazing things.
everybody's waiting for Tequila Gundam.
See, what's sad, what's really sad is that we had build fighters, right? And they had something called the Desperado Gundam. It was literally dragging what you could tell was like a missile pod off of a different kit that already existed, but it was shaped like a coffin, and it turned out it was a missile pack. It had a really narrow, like cowboy outlaw style cowboy hat, and it had all the right stylings, and everybody thought, we're gonna get a customizable Tequila Gundam. Everyone thought that. But did they do it? No. No, because they're late. So,
Yeah, so inside of the same guy that does, what's that?
we didn't even get the Desperado Gundam. We didn't get nothing. But I guess they did one thing, right? They had 25th or 35th anniversary box set of it. If you want to go out and find that and spend some money on it, you get a Tequila Gundam shot glass. That's fucking amazing. I don't have it.
So what that designer that made the Another Gundam decided to do then, because he wanted his own Tequila Gundam, he made a 135 scale bust of the Tequila Gundam. And it's another one you can pay for and print yourself in parts, and now you have a Tequila Gundam, and it ends up being a good sized unit. Like, it's a cool shelf display. So here is actually the, it's still a work in progress. So this here is the Nether Gundam. Oh, is it not? Oh, what happened? Did I lose my, let's close that out. I close this out. Switch over. Yes. Ah! So this here is the Nether Gundam. The windmill actually moves. Yeah. It's real cheesy. The head can swivel, everything. But the only parts they used out of the actual base model kit were the arms and the legs and the faceplate. The rest of it you can kit bash, which is what Dustin and Chris does. I don't kit bash. I like my kits out of the box. I want to make the kit that they sent to me, but I want to make it my way. I just don't want to put a bunch of parts on it to make something I've never seen before. That's just not my thing. We all have our preferences. So we've got Nether Gundam. One of our other members has started 3D printing weapons. So this is still a work in progress for him. This is the anti-ship rifle. It's a 1/100 scale. They don't make this in 1/100. They only do it in 1/144. So this is a really cool way to get weapons you've not seen in the scale you make for your model kit. And it comes apart. It's different pieces. He even has separate magazines where you can see the rounds in them. A lot of detail in these. And this is where resin pays off. You get more detail.
Yeah. If you want something to be light, and you want to print something that's larger, go plastic. You'll have to use some filler primer to fill in the layers, but you'll get something that's lighter. If you want detail, and especially down to small scale, go with resin.
Yeah. So when we talk about small scale, you can actually see right through there, the gaps in the metal railways. You can see the flooring has gaps. That's how small your detail can get. You can even, move that out of the way. Can't even get focus on it. But you can get some really small, great details on the actual base itself. Same with the little display stand that pops in. All 3D printed, all done at home. This whole kit was $4 for the file, and maybe about $3 worth of resin.
Tops.
It's cheap. And it doesn't take much. I have plastic printers. I don't like them. It's too much work for me. I can load a resin file up, put it on a flash drive, plug it in, press play, and it does its thing, and it's plan forget. You'll have some things that go wrong here and there, but you really don't need to know the inner workings of resin printers to make something really, really cool.
To be fair, this isn't really to take away from
Bandai.
Yeah, to take away from Bandai and the hobby. It's just at first there were a lot of purists that were very much against it, and I went back and forth on it because I can see both sides of any given point on any given argument. But realistically, this is a supplement. Some people are going to go really hard into it. Some people are going to go really light. But honestly, at the end of the day, we're here because we like to build. We like to make something that we like our action figures, or we like our figures or robots or whatever, and we like the fact that, or we might like, I hope, the fact that you have to build them. That's really what it boils down to. So it's not to take away from Bandai or anything that they do, but like sometimes their hit or misses really miss. I mean, we haven't had another Gundam, but now you can make one. You know, I mean,
And who knows what else we'll get out of it, because everybody's making something. I mean, there's no limit to it. So now, the sky's the limit. So now that we've gotten all that stuff out of the way, this is what we really wanted to do this time around. The basics are fun, most of y'all know it. Now we want to show you what a little bit of love and a little bit of time and practice will bring you. So we talked about target heavy model kits. And Bandai has supplied them with their latest entry in the grade of model kits, which is entry grade. It is a $7 model kit. Don't even need clippers, you don't need sanding sticks, you don't need anything. You can pop the pieces off, and when I did that, that felt really weird after years of clipping and sanding. Now I'm ripping pieces right off the plastic. But when you're done, you get a kit that looks decent. It's got tons of movement. The legs move, there's details in the weapon, the head has separate eye colors, the torso bends. I mean, it's for $7, this is a really cool, cheap kit to experiment with.
it's a hell of a kit.
It is, for $7. So what I did, and again, in true Japan fashion, or anime convention fashion, I waited until this morning to finish it. I took that entry grade and turned it into this. So this is a custom paint scheme based on the real type color. So I got rid of the blue, the reds, and I switched it over to a nice green, gray, dark gray coloration. I did some extra detail. Do you have one of those little cute, or the, I can't remember the name for it. The toothpick. There we go. This is where it says a pointer. Yeah, all right. So what I did with this, I added some chipping damage here. Simple process we can go over. I put some decals in. I custom painted it. I top coated it. I didn't want to do any of the panel line washes because if you do a lot of detailing, you don't need to necessarily. It kind of comes alive after that. One extra thing I did though was I ordered a set of photo etch, which are, you explain these better.
So photo etch is essentially it's a sheet of super thin metal, and you have bits that are shaped to go in specific places that you can clip out with a pair of some sort of cutters that are made something that's a little bit more heavy duty than I guess the nippers that you might use, depending. And you literally super glue them into place, and it just adds metal detail. Can you guys
yeah, it's
you guys
a little
see
tough. I'm trying to get some.
Can you guys see the kit? Okay. Can you guys see some of the details on there? Or
Is it a little bit rough? A little blurry? A little blurry. I mean, if I can get real close, and I don't know if it's gonna. Yeah, I don't know if I'm getting auto adjusting on it. Okay, you know what? Here's the fun thing. Let me close this up real quick so nobody goes crazy when I take this off.
Yeah, like I said, photo etch is essentially some aftermarket parts. There are all sorts of companies that make them. And I think Bandai might even make some as well. And it's just an aftermarket piece that sheet that has a bunch of different detail parts that you can glue into different specific parts of the kit to kind of give it a little bit of a different look to it.
And it's really tough to show you. Of course, I can't get any autofocus on it. Yeah. Tough, really tough. Okay, so let's see if I can make this work. Behind the scenes. That's really tough. Okay. So, actually, I may just walk around here while you guys are waiting. Be easier to see up close anyway. But yeah, so it's just an extra piece of detail that makes it look better. Look, it takes a $7 kit and turns it into a $50 kit or $100 kit.
As far as like worth of how good it looks. Like you said, he did some weather, he added a decals, he added an aftermarket photo etch kit, darkened out the colors to make it look a little bit more realistic, and the comparison is kind of astounding.
They look like two different kits.
And like the great thing here, if you're going, like I said, if you're going to go into painting, is that the parts of the kit are all color coded already. So if you straight build the kit, it's already color coded. So if you wanted to stick with that kind of coding, but go with a different color, that you can. So like he could have, he did add color to some parts that were white initially, but if you wanted to stick with the kind of color scheme that everybody knows the Grandpa Gundam has, he could have darkened down the red, he could have just gone green on the core, and he could have, it would have still looked better than just straight out of box. Because, and you can see, okay, well I want to make all the red parts darker. You can literally just take all those parts before you put the kit fully together and just stick them on sticks and paint them. And you don't even have to like, you don't necessarily have to take masking tape and mask things off and worry about getting overspray or anything like that onto it.
I did do that, and we have a demo kit we're going to use, which is the Leo. Painted half. I took masking tape and I sectioned it off. And half is painted and half is bare plastic out of the box. So what we're going to do today is show you some of these detailing effects, let you experience it. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We can go over stuff. We have no problem doing that. We still have a good 45, a little over 45 hour, a little over an hour. Yeah,
a little over 45 hours left in this convention. We will use all of it.
We'll go as far as we need to, and we'll open up to questions. And if we get done early, we get done early. That means you can get to your next panel or whatever you want to do quicker. So this is what we're going to work with here today. And to start that off, I need the decal sheet, my hot blade, and a Q-tip, and tweezers. Ooh, and my decal setters. So I put together a little kit full of goodies that we can use today. A lot of stuff. You don't necessarily need to go out and buy everything right away. You can take your time, build up onto it. There's new product coming out, so you can figure out what you want to use later on. If something works for you, the painting, I have 8 different brands of paints I use at home. Because every time a new one comes out, I try it and then I fall in love with it. I'm like, this is all I'm ever going to use. And then the new one comes out and I want that one instead. So what I've got here is a simple decal sheet. This isn't like stickers, these are water slides. You have to soak them in water and activate an adhesive, and then you can slide it onto your model kit. What I also have is a decal set. This allows you to kind of move the decal around and find the right fitment. If you don't have something like this or you don't have enough liquid, you can get this decal stuck and then it just tears off and you've wasted it. And then after that, I've got a Decal Fix. This will get rid of the silvering, which is an effect you get on the decal that makes it look like a sticker. You kind of want to make this look like it was painted on. You don't want to make it look like they slapped a giant sticker on the Gundam. You want to make it look like it was a paint stencil they used to number this unit.
So effectively, a lot of effectively, a lot of these aftermarket techniques, a lot of the after-build techniques that we're going to be talking about, whether it's paint, whether it's setting decals, whether it's doing panel lines, whether it's doing weathering, it's meant to make the thing look more realistic in the scale that it is in. So if you think about this, this is 144 times smaller than what it's supposed to be. So if you had a
55-foot unit.
Yeah, you've got like a 55-foot robot, and you're trying to make it look like it's got it's got a decal on there. Is it going to stick off this much like once you scaled it up? No. So effectively, the deeper down the rabbit hole you go, essentially, the crazier you can get. And some of it's pretty out there crazy as far as like complicated. Some of it's not. A lot of the stuff that we're going to show you is not. And it may seem like it. Like for instance, I've never done a water slide decal personally. Like I said, I get my enjoyment out of the build, out of kit bashing. Some guys, a lot of people that you'll see online, they get their fun in customizing out of build painting, like getting a really nice finished paint job. The reason why I talked about like in scale is because the second one that he talked about, the fix, that's meant to make it look like a stencil, it effectively kind of slightly melts the decal so that the edges blend down to the thing, so that it basically makes it go flatter, and it also makes it kind of form to the piece. So if you got, say, a rounded shoulder joint, like if anybody, who's seen a Zaku? Who's seen like a Zaku too? Okay, who's seen any of the other Gundam kits that have, or figures? If you got something like with a rounded shoulder or something, obviously a flat decal isn't necessarily going to form the greatest to it. You might end up with some folds. the decal, the fix that he's talking about, it makes it form to the piece. And if it has, like, say, a panel line in it, like, say you got a panel line right here, it's going to make it kind of sink into that panel line as well, because a panel line is essentially them trying to emulate in scale a place where in real life 2 panels would meet. So when you're doing panel lining, what you're doing is simulating the shadow where you wouldn't be able to see in between those 2 panels. So it's like I said, it's just basically making it look more detailed and true to scale.
So once you let your decal sit in a little bit of water, half a minute, sometimes depending on the quality of the decal, 10 seconds is good enough. Just dab it out, get some of that excess water off, and then using, actually I use my X-Acto, you can, I forgot the decal set. Using some of the decal set, once you figure out where you're going to put it, just a small amount on the kit, and then you can slide decal off into the spot you want it. And then what that decal set does, it allows me to move it around. So I have a lot of movement here before I can figure out where I want it. Yeah, a lot of play. And then I can use a Q-tip to dab off some of the extra. Figure out where I want it. I find this really relaxing. I love putting decals on. So I'm gonna put that right there. Nice little happy decal. And we're gonna. I was telling my buddy that I was going to do the entire thing in a Bob Ross style. I'm going to put a happy little decal and do some happy little weathering for that there. And some battle damage right there, but it's okay, life throws some battle damage at us here and there. I'll take that one out, thank you. So once that's set, you take a little bit of your Decal Fix.
Some places will call it decal softer because of, like I said, it kind of it makes the decal soft.
Just put a little bit on there, and then don't touch it. Let it air dry. And what that'll do is it'll melt the excess decal down and kind of smooth it out, so you get that nice finish on it. Keeps it from looking like a sticker. You don't get that sheen. So while that's going, I can work it a little bit more. I've got a couple more in here, and then we can move on to the next bit. Pretty simple process, right? It looks crazy. It almost seems like it's difficult. A lot of people don't do it because it seems like it's too much. It's time consuming. It does take a little bit of extra time. But I think I get a little bit more out of it than I would normally.
Initially, I didn't do water slides because I thought it looked like crazy. I had done some research online, and it looked, they basically kind of said, yeah, you gotta be really careful with it. Eventually, it was just because I just didn't have time. I'm working too much right now.
And
in like 6 days a week.
A lot of kits come with, if you built real grade before, hundreds of decals. So it can become a little bit overwhelming. A lot of people love covering their kit in decals. I like a little bit just to give it enough extra. And of course you want to use a color that doesn't stand out, or that does stand out, excuse me. I'm not going to put a black on this green. I want reds, I want whites, stuff that really pops.
And some of these decals are just going to be like line designs. Others are going to be what you would expect to see on a giant robot. Like if you look really close, like on say high grade scale, you might be able to read one word and it might just be danger, but then the rest on the bottom below it, you can't read it, but it's meant to look like dangerous text, like do not get too close, watch your step, things like that. It's I've seen some where it's literally just caution striking. Like it's just meant to kind of simulate the things that you would put on a heavy duty machine that's meant to go through a lot of rigorous paces, and that you're meant to be careful around. You know, because I mean, this thing's driven by in some sort of anything from a fantasy reactor to an actual real life nuclear style reactor. And I mean, they got a lot of moving parts, they got a lot of things that are going on, so that's what it's meant to simulate.
Is anybody in here former military? A couple? A few? Were you sure? Like maybe, possibly, in a dream maybe once? Another life? If you ever went down to the motor pool or sat in a Humvee, whatever, you saw warning things everywhere. Don't put your hand here, don't put something here, it's going to pinch something. Yeah, this is a pinch point. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Warning, Gundam.
Yeah. Or if you've ever seen heavy mechanical equipment, there's warnings everywhere. They don't just leave it bare. And they put those warnings there because, oh no. They put those warnings there because somebody has either put their hand there and it's been pinched off, or they really know it's going to happen if they do it. Same reason there's warning labels on everything nowadays.
Do not operate with genitalia.
Yeah.
Apparently that's a warning that's been put on things.
Yeah, electrician work is really weird.
Dude, it really is.
Okay.
No, did you actually have a question, or were you just...
No.
Okay.
It was a different life, right? Oh, you're active now.
Oh,
Oh, okay, good enough. Oh, what branch? Army. Oh yeah, fun one, right? Yeah.
okay.
Hey, you get your days off, which is nice. So our next little bit right here is going to be, actually Dustin's going to take over, and he's going to cover edge highlighting and a little bit of panel washing to give you a little bit of extra depth in your kit.
Yeah.
So you get the hot seat, buddy.
Yeah. Hot. Oh, God, it is hot. Okay. I'm just getting very a little bit loud. So, but anyway, okay, so, all right, cool. So let me see. Let me get a. There we go. Nope, sure. Right. Okay, so so here's what we got. So with weathering, you can go. Obviously, if you're weathering, you're not going to make it clean. You're going to make it look dirty. You're going to make it look grungy. You're going to make it look like it's been in war. Now, I haven't done a bunch. I've done some. I haven't done some of the more advanced stuff where you've got like mud splatter on the feet, or like some of the stuff that Chris has done with this dome up here. And you guys, if you want to, when the panel's over, feel free. You can come up front and take a look at it and see some of the work that he's put into it, because it's really impressive. Like, you can go really crazy. A lot of this stuff comes down to common sense. So like, where would the weathering be? So like with Chris's kit, he has a bunch of mud on the bottom because where's it going to be? It's not going to be on the head. It's probably not going to be up on the chest either, but you're going to have quite a bit of it on the feet because it's going to accrue. Same thing as dirt in the treads of tank tracks. So, like I said,
think of like a nice rainy day, you get back home after driving around. What does your car look like? It's got debris and dirt and mud in certain spots. You know, it's not going to be pristine. You're not going to have dirt and mud on the top of your car. It's going to be where the wheel well is, where it's coming in contact with dirt.
And since these are walking vehicles, when you were a kid playing outside in the mud, I mean, besides jumping into the mud, if it's just you running, it's mostly going to be on your legs or your lower body.
yeah, that's really what it boils down to. So I haven't used this before. These are like watercolor pencils that you just kind of get them wet a little bit, and then they'll come off onto the kit. What I've usually mostly done for weathering that is actually quite simple and very, very effective is I don't even remember what you would call it, but effectively it's silvering. And it's the idea that, imagine if you had a tank in a desert, right? Eventually, some of that paint's going to get blasted off. Where's it going to get blasted off from? Well, first off, you're going to have the paint blasted off the edges. And especially on the corners is where you're really going to get paint blasting off. So for silver edging, a lot of what you do is a technique called dry brushing. Now, a really neat trick that you can do sometimes to utilize how cruddy the Gundam markers actually are, because they're not meant to color a full kit, they're meant to touch things up, is you can utilize the fact that the paint doesn't always flow very well. So instead of like pressing them down and making the paint flow, you can just kind of get them to flow a little bit, wipe off some of the excess, and then just kind of drag them along, and the paint will come out in fits and spurts. And it'll just come out in random places on the kit. But with dry brushing, essentially what you do is you get paint all over the brush, and then you wipe off the excess onto a towel. And that does feel like a bit of a waste, but what you've ended up doing is the paint should only really be left in the very base of the brush. What you're going to do is you just come right along the edge, and you're just going to take some silver to it. And what that does is, what's that? We have an edge. Well, that's where paint comes off first. And the corners, you're gonna go a little bit heavier because, like I said, paint wears away from the corners a lot quicker. So you'll end up with a really nice effect that doesn't take a lot of work. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort to get used to. But like I said, it's not really difficult because it's just similar to panel lining in that you're just going to follow the lines. You're just going to make happy little trees.
That was my bit.
Slipped it.
Find
Hey,
your
I
own.
slipped it in there. It took him a second, okay?
There was one thing I found that looked interesting was taking cotton balls and then making them look like dust clouds.
I have seen that done as well on like dioramas, and you can take and effectively you just kind of string out a cotton ball to where it's kind of hazy, and then you just support it on a piece of wire and kind of paint it with a bit of aerosol, like a tan and a little bit of brown, and it'll make it look like a dust cotton. That is good.
Or smoke kind of.
Yeah. As far as you're thinking like bluing, aren't you? So there's a lot of different types of weathering that you can do. A lot of the weathering that people will do on thruster bells and on barrel ends is what's called a metal bluing, and it's essentially it's what happens when, like chemically, whenever you heat up metal a lot to high temperatures, eventually it starts to turn blue on the end, and that kind of fades to an orange and then a yellow and then back to the regular metal color. That's something that I haven't done yet, but I've seen people do it to great effect to get a more realistic look on their thruster bells, on the ends of their barrels, on any kind of barrel that's on the kit, as a matter of fact, because some of these kits right up around the head, is that the head? Yeah, that's the head. No, I just had a bit of disconnect. I know where the head
That's
is, I
something I've
promise.
done.
No.
Dustin, that effect he's talking about is something I've done on weaponry.
Yeah.
When you supercharge a weapon in the Gundam universe, you get that nice purple, copper, gold, blue effect. Airbrushing is amazing for that because you can lightly put layers on. And I usually start with I do the silver first, I get that in there, make the degraded metal, I do a little bit of purple and a little bit of blue, because you get those variation, the gradients in there. I love doing it on the thruster bells as well. This gentleman here asked if there's any extra detailing things for thrusters. There's so many paints. The military scale model lines have tons of thruster paints and burnt metal paints, jet exhaust. I buy it whenever I find it because it's a different color, it's a different shade. You can dry brush it on, you can airbrush it on, but it makes it look like at any point in time the kit has taken off and flown hundreds of feet and exhausted its fuel. They also have different effect markers that will give you the smoke damage from the exhaust coming out, and that's where you really see that a kit's been weathered or that a suit has seen combat and actually moved around. It wasn't just production line, right off that production line.
Let's see, I've made some mistakes here, like right there.
They're not mistakes.
So, oh yeah, they're it's
Not
art.
mistakes,
There
it's
you go. There you go. We're getting the hang of it. But yeah, see, you can see right there that there's a really large silver mark there where I didn't take out enough paint and I wasn't really careful with what I was doing. But the funny thing is, you can also see on the shield where I put a little bit more there and it looks, you can't see it very well, unfortunately, because this isn't, it's just not focusing correctly.
Camera for next. I'll get a new camera for next year. It'll look a lot better.
But you can tell. You can brush along and you just kind of follow the edge and it comes along really nicely, actually. It just kind of blends to it. But whether I haven't done painting often because like I said, I don't get my enjoyment of the hobby from that bit, but I'm slowly getting the hang of it. And honestly, silvering on the edges is one of my favorite things to do as far as that goes, because it's very simple and it's a very effective way to kind of make the kit look a bit more realistic. But having said that,
Real quick, while you're doing that and finishing up your little battle damage kit, your happy little battle damage.
yeah.
Anybody a fan of Adam Savage? I mean, cosplayers.
All should be, right?
So, every cosplayer that goes, anybody that builds anything, any maker, is a fan of Adam Savage. He's recently figured out Gundam exists and they are way cooler. You saw that early. It was amazing. It blew his mind. And one thing he always does when he builds things, when he paints and he makes props, he weathers the hell out of them because they cover your mistakes. So putting together my little high grade with all that extra paint, I chipped a little bit off, covered it up with battle damage.
See, the great thing about battle damage is that not only can you cover a mistake, it does, again, make it look more realistic because, yeah, this thing isn't gonna, it's probably not gonna sit on a showroom floor like a brand new car. It's going to end up looking like it's had things happen to it. So,
and if you've seen Gundam shows, you know the grunt suits don't last very long anyway, so they're gonna take a lot of damage. Make it look like it got beat up.
yeah, so I haven't used this kind of wash before much, but yeah. But effectively, you can take and you can wash out this suit, and you can go in and try to just keep it to the panel lines, or you can just kind of grunge it out like this and just go over the whole top of it. You probably can't see it too well from the camera, but I'm just going over the whole plate, like I'm going super dark. And what's going to happen with a wash is that wherever you go over on the lighter spots, on the high places, it's going to dry out pretty close to clear. You're going to see a bit of a tint. But on the darker places, it's going to pool, it's going to gather, and it's going to make it look darker the same way that grime would. Like if you've ever seen a piece of working machinery, industrial style, at all, or like if you're in the military, any of the planes, the tanks, the vehicles, you look up in the motor pool, you look in an engine for your car, you're going to see grime collecting in bits and pieces in multiple different spots because that's how grime works. That's how you've got oil, you've got grease, you've got all sorts of stuff that's going to be collecting in places, and eventually it's going to wash over something, and that's what this kind of is supposed to simulate.
And if you look at your engines too, you're going to see it's not going to be everywhere. Again, grime and debris is going to be in specific places where oil leaks.
I haven't done very well with that here. I've just kind of slathered it on there.
Yeah, he's having fun with it. Again, grunt suit.
Yeah.
This is the most work he's even done on a Gundam probably in the past 2 years.
Okay.
So
It's been a journey. That's what happens when I work too much.
Yeah, it's a fun little hobby though.
Yeah.
And again, it's difficult to see if you get that right focus on it. We've got a table set up right by the vendor hall entrance, where we've got all the kits up here. We'll have it so you can pick it up, and I'll let you pick my stuff up, all the ones that are right here. Pick it up, play with it. It's interactive. Just sanitize your hands beforehand. I don't have a problem with that. But you can see what we're doing here today. You can see what I've done. Ask us questions. We're there for you. We'll be here all weekend. And actually came in one of our local businesses, Rick Otaku Cafe. Give a nice little wave. Hi, up front.
One of the guys. One of the local.
You wore the shirt.
You wore the shirt. You made this.
He is one of what we call our classic craft dealers.
Yes.
He supplies us with our model kits. He supplies us with paints. That entire store has everything we need. Model kits and anime related. While he's finishing up, I'll do some promos. Another store I go to is Hill Country Hobby off of Bandera Road. The guy that runs that is a very old school modeler. He does monster movie bosses. He makes resin figures. He does military scale models. He's got paint. He has kits. He has tons of items. And then another would be Steven's Hobbies, who, 2-3 years now? Steven?
Something like that.
Recently moved to the scene off of Kitty Hawk in 1604, way on the other side of town.
He does service an area that doesn't really have a service.
He does, and you get a lot of vintage collectibles like
Power
Teenage
Rangers,
Mutant Ninja Turtles,
TMNT.
but he has model kits too. He's got a whole wall of Gundam. He has paint, he has supplies.
Okay, so
So now I'm going to go over a little bit more of aspect. If you didn't notice me, the person who wasn't talking all day, my name is Chris.
He's a very quiet person.
Yeah, not a big talker whatsoever. But
So we put him on stage.
yeah.
what you saw Dustin do was basic weathering. Lighter stuff, something that was barely moving. I'm gonna go into more detailed stuff. Now, he showed you a bit of a little chipping. I like to do, for one, I like to use darker colors. Now, because silver,
We took a year off, we're figuring it out again.
he likes to use a silver color, and that's a cool effect, but personally for me, I prefer like a gray. So let me put some down.
Now, if you've ever been if you've ever unfortunately been in a car accident, you've seen that your vehicle isn't just whatever color it is. There's a primer layer underneath. Like when you prime a Gundam, when you prime a vehicle, you need an adhesive layer, and that's what we're trying to simulate. When you chip paint off of a giant robot, it's not going to be just bare metal, unless it was a really deep gouge. They put a primer coat on that. It may have been a different color completely. Maybe it belonged to a different pilot, and that pilot's gone or transferred, and they repainted it to make it a unique suit. So you may have reds, you may have yellows, you may have browns, you may have just regular gray. Or they may have put that color on first and you just get bare metal. Usually bare metal signifies deep damage, so you don't want tons of it on there because that really means it was beaten to hell, it was gouged out, it was severely damaged. You've seen a lot of combat. A little bit of like weathering in the joints where the shoulder pads and the elbows move, you're going to see a little bit of just whatever the base coat color is. And that's whatever you want to make it. We do more realistic colors, the olive drabs, the greens. I'm trying to experiment with like far out neons, turquoise. I mean, it's a sci-fi universe. It doesn't have to be a military color. Make it whatever you want. If you want a bright neon orange suit, have fun, do it. Be the giant caution cone that gets shot at first.
Get it as obnoxious as you can, as loud as you can.
I mean, the best characters in Gundams always had bright colored suits. The aces always stood out and declared, "Come fight me."
Naval camo.
Yeah, naval camo. Oh god, camo. Yeah. Woo. I'm still cautious on that one. That's something I haven't done yet. Is camo. It makes me really nervous because I want to do digital camo with a bunch of different.
They do make water slides that simulate that, so you don't have to try and freehand that shit. Let's be real.
They make actual sticker sheets you can just peel and put on now.
That too.
Yeah, you just take it off, slap it on, paint, and rip it off, and put a new one on, paint, rip it off.
Anyway,
More expensive.
so Chris has some stuff to say about what he's doing.
right now I'm doing it called a sponge method. Because you get a small piece of sponge, it could be a fake one or artificial one, or if you go to an actual art store, you can buy real sea sponges. You take a small part, rip as small as possible, and you dip it in the paint. And what you saw in my hand was I'm getting the excess off, so you're not just dunking it on the suit. You don't want to be a big mess, and it can be put barely on there, so it looks like it's not even noticeable.
This is also my preferred method as well. I love this. The sponge makes it random. Once you've done a leg or an arm, rip a new piece off and get a new pattern. Everything's going to be random like this. Dustin goes for the more detailed, like he wants to know this was here specifically because a weapon hit it or a shell bounced off of it. I want wear and tear from scraping tree lines or buildings or bumping into things. You get that from a sponge. You don't necessarily get that from really going in and making each individual line.
Yeah, I just never got to that point, to be honest.
He's got a table full of probably a dozen different model kits that have a dozen other model kits combined into it that are just in their bare plastic. And every time it's, look what I'm working on now, I'm like, well, what about those? And this is new.
So one time we had a local contest that was steampunk themed, and I put forth a model kit that I worked on it every single afternoon and every weekend for like a month and a half, and I still did not manage to finish, and it had a minimum amount of paint on it. It was still mostly primer, and it still took third because it fit the theme well enough. And by the time I was done, I had from the thighs up done of this kit, and it was this big. I went all out. I do crazy conversions. I've taken high grades that were big and put small master grade bits into them and blended them and extended their proportions. I bet you can do all sorts of crazy shit. If you have a knife and a saw and some willpower and a willingness to trash the kit and not be afraid of possibly fucking it up, because that's really what you have to do if you want to do a kit bash, you can do it. And if you're still afraid of that, shoot, Bandai makes extra weapon kits now that literally make it easier for you to customize kits. So you don't even have to do cutting and fixing and puttying and all the other crazy stuff.
Now,
But
when he's talking about his themes, when you're starting to do this, if you're not familiar with weathering and doing anything like that, pick up a cheap kit and have fun with it, weather the hell out of it, and make it look like your own. Just experiment. I have 2 kits I keep on my desk that I just mess with. They're painted, they're chipped, there are parts missing, but I have fun with it. If I want to try something new, it goes on one of those. Then once you figure out what you want to do, pick a theme, like steampunk, and stick to the theme. Have fun with it.
this is the perfect kit to try on. Like
Yeah.
what he was talking about, $7 entry grade kit, and it's high grade scale.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what I was doing earlier before was it's a mud splash. You basically put a bit of the mud effect at the bottom, put it at the end of the brush, and you flick it.
Do you use the mud stuff?
Yeah.
Awesome. So they, a lot of model companies now make a
Texture.
texture paint. You could go out to the yard, scoop up some dirt, bake it off, mix it with a little bit of Elmer's glue, and use that as a mud for your feet on the Gundam, or whatever you're making. If you're making a military kit, which I do really encourage y'all, do something with the military stuff. It's a different scale, but it lets you see more and experiment more with a different style that you can then apply towards a gun block kit. But you can take dirt, mud, glue it on. It'll look like dirt. Or you can go and buy a jar of Vallejo pigment and use what they've got pre-done in their can and flick it on, and you get realistic splatter. Splatter isn't precise, it's random. So by flicking it on, you get that cool effect of it stepping in a giant puddle. Now here we can flick it on. At home I hit it with a blast from the airbrush and it just sprays mud right onto the kit. And you can make it even simulate from a different angle, spraying up the leg. So that way you get that effect of it really hitting a deep puddle and splashing all the way up the thigh. So that's what he's working on right now to kind of show that off. And you do get this really cool effect.
What I'm doing now is using a grease oil stain. Basically, in moving vehicles, whether it be cars or military vehicles, you're going to see a lot of moving parts that shoot out grease. So with this effect, I like to put it on moving joints because it makes sense, makes the most sense there. And like I did before, I'm doing that mud flick. You grab a toothpick and just start flicking.
So what he's doing is running that brush head against that toothpick, and that effect of it coming down is actually flicking paint down. So you're gonna get some excess that comes back, and sometimes it'll hit you, whatever. It's not a clean hobby, and again, I wear gloves because I don't want that on my, he's dabbing away on his hand, I don't like that.
I don't care.
He doesn't.
I don't care.
I'm clean.
Cool. Someone beforehand was talking about thrusters.
Yes.
They like to do the color effect. Personally, for me, I like to just put a stain effect on the engines. He has what is called Stardust Filth, really popular with sci-fi suits. I'm gonna put some down right here. I'm gonna get a Q-tip, and I'm just gonna color the inside of the thruster.
And what this is a super, super thinned out paint, essentially. But it mimics Starship grime, thruster grime, joint grime. You can just spray it right on, and if you have excess, wipe it off. It's water soluble. You can use a Q-tip and a little bit of water to take it off too.
Really, that's all the washes really are. Like even the panel liners, it's effectively just really thin down paint. So all you have is they're not as thick as paint. You have a very running liquid that has a lot of pigment in it that makes it easier for the pigment to get in the places you want it to get.
Pretty easy stuff to understand. So, do you have a question, or are you gonna business?
No, I think we can ask a question.
Yes.
Is it possible to put
Personal preference. How badly do you want your kit to look damaged and grimy? You'll find your happy place by experimenting.
It really depends on what you want to do. Sometimes you just think it's too much, then maybe you need to restart.
So Dustin's mentioned Warhammer, and I'm trying to stay away from it because it is a gun.
Yeah.
There's a whole joke about, I actually keep some of the paint, but it's a whole joke about dipping the finished kit, pristine, awesome little minifigure, into a, what is it, the wash black one? No.
Oh,
Citadel. For anybody that's on the Citadel, was it? No oil. It is a super thin, it's basically deck safe.
It's thinner.
It's thinner, yeah,
Not
it's
thinner,
thinned out.
it's panel liner.
It's
what
a
it
panel
feels
line wash,
It's
but
a wash.
the thing is you take this pristine kit, you dunk it in there, and you pull it out, and there you go, there's your space marine.
You're just,
Lined up ready for
it's,
combat.
before it looked like it was half done, and now it's like perfect. This is done. But yeah, no, seriously,
It takes you 45 minutes to paint the model, and you're like, it's only half done. Splash. There we go.
it's finished. There's the other half. No, seriously, like whether it can be that easy. You don't necessarily have to go like full in. Like Chris goes for super realism with his kits, which I very much admire, to be honest. But if you want your stuff to look weathered, you don't even have to do the silvering stuff that I was doing on the edge highlighting. All you really need, just to start, if you want to make your stuff look weathered, get you some panel wash. Get you some panel wash, some grunge wash, and just run that brush across the kit, and it'll run down, and you can clean up the excess with the Q-tip, and it'll still look like something that's been through some real life experiences. It'll still look like something that's actually gone through the mud, gone through the, it's got gunk on it, effectively. And that's like, if I had to suggest one basic thing to do, to make your stuff look more weathered, I would suggest a wash. Like a gunk wash, a panel wash, a dark wash. And they make them in all sorts of different colors. You don't just have black. You can get brown. You can get washes in any color of the rainbow. If you wanted to wash your stuff in purple and make it look like it came off of an alien planet, you could do that. It would be a bit weird, but...
I would even recommend, go to your local hobby store and see if they have a paint set. A lot of companies make full box sets that come with all the paints you're going to need to paint one color model. I picked one up that was specifically for purple mecha suits. So it's 3 different shades of purple, metal colors, and a gray. And that's everything you need to paint a Gundam, but in a purple scheme. And that's something I never would have thought really. I'm not going to buy purple paint. I was doing realistic models. But that's something you can do to kind of figure out what you do. If you get that paint, you can thin it out with whatever thinner you use, whether it's acrylic or water,
Whatever
and then
the
use
paint
that
calls
as a panel wash.
Yeah.
What I'm going to try to do right now is a little bit, we're going to rush through the rusting. Some, with suits that are exposed outside, you're going to see a lot, you're going to see rust. Now, the key thing we do these model kits is not go crazy. You see a lot of newcomers with just people who go crazy into rusting, just like pour it on there. But you got to remember, a military, they're not going to use a vehicle that's covered in complete rust, whether it be a car or a military vehicle, to a point where it's going to be super damaged. You're not going to drive a car that's like, you're not going to drive a car that's like, rust is eating into the metal.
I mean, you might, but then you're probably...
How bad is your budget?
I'm
Or post-apocalypse. Yeah, post-apocalypse. If you do a post-apocalyptic, yeah, rust out everywhere is great. So what he's using is a MIG ammo rust color. It's just a rust orange color. You can use it for whatever you want, but it also does kind of mimic the rust effect where it has that grittiness. And then another one we have up here is another Bleo rust texture, where when you put it on, it gives you that really nice, worn, rusted look.
I like to go and use different brown colors, like a dark red to a light red. Since I put those 2 colors down, I'm going to go ahead and use the texture.
That's probably the most he said to any of us in the past year as well.
Now, this is a little paint palette. This is virtually the same stuff that's used in makeup, and
It basically is makeup.
yeah, it virtually is makeup.
So take your girlfriend's eyeshadow and chop a little bit of it up, put it on a brush, and wipe it onto your kit. It'll work.
Like I was showing dry brushing, with technique with silver for the edges. That paint, that palette, you can do silvering with the powder that comes in that. The one thing to know though with the powders and stuff is that once you're done with it, you really either don't want to handle it a lot or you want to clear coat it because it will eventually come off. I mean, it is just powder, but it does make things, it does make it a lot easier possibly to get stuff on without having to worry about, well, I got too much paint on there, how am I going to take it off? I mean, you use the powder, you just kind of powder it on there, you're good to go. If you get too much, you just wipe it off and start again.
After you put the palette down, make sure you just put some paint down, let it dry down.
Yeah, so what he's doing is he's giving something for the powder to adhere to.
Yeah.
So it has that texture. Another thing you can use is it's pastels. Buy a cheap pastel kit. Scrape off a little bit into a tray and brush that on after you flat coated the kit. It'll stick to the flat coat, put another flat coat on, you can build it up, and what you can do is add different depth of color. So in recessed areas, for those that do resins, I build resin model anime figures in my free time, and that's how you get a really cool subtle skin effect and hair colorations, is by putting a little bit of pastel in there to kind of fill that gap in.
So I think the last thing that we kind of had on our plate was a scribing, and unfortunately it would appear that the gentleman that had asked about kits that were really flat and then you see them later and they've got a lot of detail there, he's no longer here, unfortunately, but the way that that's achieved, where you see a really plain kit and then afterwards it's got a lot of detail, is with panel scribing. Panel scribing utilizes one of a few different tools that you can use. Anything from the back of an X-Acto blade to a scribing tool that's made for the purpose. It's got a little curved hook blade, and all it's doing is it's just kind of scraping up a thin line of plastic along the surface. And you can do it freehand. There are some people that utilize an edge guide to help with things. Or I've heard some people use Dymo like label making tape, especially for getting around curves, because it's just thick enough that you can use it to guide the blade and not just skip over it. But effectively, you're just kind of going in real lightly and making a few passes until you've got a deep enough line to notice. And you're turning a very plain surface into all of a sudden something that is effectively, for all intents and purposes, visually, is now segmented. Because, like I said, the panel lines that are on the kit are meant to look like the places where two pieces of plate meet. And if you add in panel lines, you're segmenting your kit even more into more panels. And it takes a little bit of work, a little bit of practice, and you probably are going to screw up. The few times I've done it, I screwed up. And like I said, I get my fun out of building them and kit bashing them, so I have to scribe pretty much most times. If I want more detail, I'll just find a different piece with more detail and glue it on. Not that basic, but you get the idea. But with a little bit of practice, it gets easier, and you can, with that kind of skill set, you can really add some great detail to the piece.
This isn't really perfect because I'm not scribing myself, but yeah, it's just to add more detail and stuff that you want.
Yeah, and we'll have a.
And whereas for me, it's a new thing for me. I'm learning how to do it. Between the two kits that I brought in, where I showed the base, entry grade, and then the painted detailed one, the shield is panel scribe. It's rough. It looks ugly. I'm still new at it.
It's effective,
but it works. It takes something that's plain and gives it more character. I mean, they probably wouldn't take a giant hunk of metal and slap it on the arm of a model kit or a real-life Gundam. It would be segments of armor that would go on and then connect to a frame. It'd be too heavy if it was just one giant piece of metal. I mean, for the most part, these things weigh 50, 60 tons.
Yeah.
In the sci-fi universe, they're 50 or 60 tons. And we've got a real-life Gundam in Japan that weighs twice that and doesn't move. Well, no, the unicorn.
Future metal.
Future metal.
Yeah. I showed you a little bit of basics of stuff you can do. But let me show you the kit. Let me show you the kit that we're talking about when I was working on it.
Oh yeah, the military stuff. Don't worry, that's going to be another one we talk about next year. Military significance in the robotic future.
Right there.
I can't wait for that.
Now he was talking about themes. You can do almost anything, any type of thing you want. But let me talk about this kit. I was going for more of a Weimar Panzer Corps. If you don't know what that is, that's World War II German Army. So the color scheme is basically off an armored tank from that era. On the bottom right here is what you call Zimmerit, which was an anti-magnet coating they used to put on tanks for the German army.
It was basically like a paste they would slap on the sides of the tanks and then roll a Zimmerit tool over, which would give it like a gap in between. What that would do is kind of break that magnetic seal, so magnetic bonds would be able to adhere to the tanks. It becomes more difficult to blow up. Stuff for the Allied forces, Germans loved it.
Now, for the kit, basically, it's a combination of paint, fillers, and rust effects. Right here you can see a little bit of the chipping. With the Heat Hawk, I want to put a little bird effect on it to make it seem like it's been used a lot. Let's see the decal. Let me show you that.
Because with some of these kits, for those of you that don't know, with a lot of the Xeon kits, the big rounded kits, they don't have beam effect stuff. They just have weapons made out of metal that can go really hot, and they just energize the sucker until it just gets white hot on the edge and hot enough to cleave through. And so that's what he's talking about there, in case you didn't know.
This is a little rust effect I made because these tanks are all propellant tanks. So I assumed liquid was going to leak out in some parts. So I wanted to assimilate part because these I'm going for like a late war to like maybe like a Xeon Resistance, and they're not going to have bases. A lot of it's just going to be done in someone's garage or something.
So a lot of them are going to be slapdash. You're going to have fixes that are made that are done out in the field. You're going to have stuff that they're using until it literally breaks out from underneath them. The same way it would happen in real life war. Like I said, like we've been saying, the stuff that Chris does as far as paints, weathering, the whole nine, it really follows that realistic mindset to quite the extreme that makes it look really good.
So while we're does anybody else have any questions about what we've gone over? Want to see something else again, maybe? Basic stuff you can take home. Simple, right? I like the head nods, silent head nods, yeah. So what I want to see is, well, one, we're going to have this video up. My buddy Pat that flew in, he's going to he's recorded everything. He's going to make a nice YouTube video. It'll be on our San Antonio Gundam Association page. Send a request in, we'll accept the end. You can watch the video here shortly. He's going to start working on it tomorrow. That way we can go over a lot more. And then what I want to see is everybody pick up a kit, detail it, have fun with it, and post it on the page. Leave your Instagram if you're a amateur builder. If you do video reviews, put it up there. We want to see this stuff because our goal is to make the hobby grow. And I know it's difficult to find Gundam models right now. I mean, they sold out online. Yes?
I was wondering on these kits,
Yes.
do you take them apart in segments when you paint them, or just paint them as a whole kit?
So it really depends on the kit. Some kits you can take them apart and paint them and they look great when you put them back together because the seam lines are meant to be seam lines. Others you want to mask off a lot of extra parts. So like with that Leo that we've been using as an example, I literally just straight down the middle, took the legs off and legs and arms off one side and painted it that way, and then hand brushed the rest of the details on that I didn't feel like painting. So it kind of comes down to personal preference. If you want to take the entire kit apart and paint everything, you're going to find out that there's parts that don't need to be painted because they're hidden. But you'll learn. I mean, it's kind of a growing experience. So it just kind of comes down to what your comfort level is and what you know going into the airbrushing hobby. So again, pretty easy, but we want to see you guys build and do more with it. Building a plastic model kit is great, and having a Gundam out of the box, clean built is fun to have. But it doesn't tell a story. We want you to tell a story with what your hobby is. We want you to take this and make this your ace pilot suit. If you were in the one-year war, that would probably be his suit. That would have been him right there piloting that thing. Or we would all have been in that MS ball and been floating around space in the little tiny Nobody's getting a Gundam in this room, be realistic, we would have been in the worst stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we could end up like the guy on the 8th MS team and still wreck a Saga.
Yeah. But
That was
we want you to build something that you want, and we want you to tell a story with it. We want to see at any point by looking at this kit we put together that it could start moving, or that being damage on the arm was because it was in combat and it came out victorious. There's tons of different techniques you can use. You can
do
stuff you can't even cover in a building because you light toothpicks on fire and then jam them into the plastic to give a bullet hole effect. We can't do that in here because it's fire.
I could.
We can't.
I'd get
we don't have
kicked
the-
out, but I could do it.
We don't have the resources to use a Dremel and dig detail into a kit
I've done
to make
that
it look
too.
like, well, not in a panel room, but yeah, we can't do that here. There's tons of stuff you're gonna find outside. Yeah.
Yeah, people do that with soldering irons too. So,
Yeah, soldering irons.
So, for a quick thing, you can do realistic like bullet holes, slashes, slash marks, whatever cuts with the soldering iron. You just have to be really careful, not just because you're probably going to possibly burn yourself, but because you want control of it. And the one thing to keep in mind is keep it small, because think about how big it's going to be. It'll look good if you do that, but like if you make it smaller, it'll look even better. And on top of that, are you going to have think about it logically? Are you going to have bullet holes in the chest? No, because then the pilot's dead. You know.
What I mean by making it smaller is
Yeah.
this is a 60-foot. Realistically, this mobile suit would be 60 feet tall.
Yeah.
If you put a bullet effect right here, and on your model kit, that bullet effect is a 1/4 inch wide, how big would that be on a 60-foot robot? Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
They're not firing off ammunition that big.
If they are, the suit's gone.
Yeah,
the suit's gone. It's dead. It's done. That's just take the kit, just put it in the trash because it's gone.
Think to scale. Think to scale. Yeah, it's a small kit. You want the damage to be noticeable when you look at it because you want to see it. But realistically, if that's what you're going for, it's not going to look like that. Now, if you want to put big battle damage on it, do it. It's your kit. If you want to make it look like it took a gigantic round, have fun with it. But that's why I encourage everybody to try military scale models as well, because then they can do something at a bigger scale. Those tend to be 135, 148, 172. So yeah, like a bigger impact round is going to look better on that vehicle, and it'll give you a little bit of practice. Also, those kits tend to have a lot more detail than Gundams do, so you can really get into it and figure out where all the panel lines are, all those nice good recesses, battle damage, oil stains, weathers. They have big, thick engines on the back. Try it.
Yeah. Like you said, it's isn't to tell you what to do. It isn't to tell you do this, nothing else. Do what you want. It's a model kit that you can build however you want. You can build it wrong. You can build it with arms where the legs coming off the shoulders or something. Be weird. I don't care. But if you wanted to try for something more realistic, these are some ideas and tips and tricks that we have found over the years of us doing it and over our researches on the internet that make sense. The biggest thing, yeah, we're here to give you the ideas and the tools, and then you do with it what you like.
I mean, if one of y'all go home today and hit an online store and start buying tools to build stuff, I'm done. I did what I wanted to do. I'm happy with that.
I mean, shoot, I've seen people troll by building a kit and keeping as many pieces of runners attached to it as they
There's some
could.
good stuff out there.
Oh, there's some wild stuff out there.
Oh yeah, we built for a contest at Otaku Cafe.
Oh yeah, that was
we built a Gundam helmet out of the leftover runners from a model kit.
Oh yeah.
And it's
It
still
was
there.
wild. It's still there. It's wicked. I think it took first for that little contest.
It was awesome. I loved it.
Good. It's amazing. It was wild. You can do all sorts of cool stuff
But yeah,
with this.
again, we've only got a little bit of time left. But we're here to give you the basic guideline and to kind of show you something maybe you've never seen before, and let you figure it out from there. Let your imagination run wild.
If I had anything to say to you guys to keep in mind as far as like any aftermarket stuff that you do to your kits, painting, weathering, gunk washes, decals, the whole nine, any of that stuff. If I had any advice to give to you, I would say use common sense. Like I was talking about when I did the silver effects. Where is it going to get paint worn off? The edges and the corners. Now, it's gonna have some worn off other places, but that's probably where it's gonna be heaviest, because that's where the grid rushes across it. Where is it gonna have bullet holes? Not in the chest, because then the pilot's dead. Probably not the head either, because that's where all the cameras are. If you do, then you're gonna have to do some serious,
Actually do that.
some
Blow the
serious
head
crazy
off,
stuff.
put a big hole
Do
through
it.
it, and put some cables coming out, have an arm
You
off
can,
of it.
you can.
Do that,
But
have fun with it.
if you were gonna do weather, think realistically. If it's not gonna have bullet holes in the head. If it is, then I would say, think about it a different way. Take off the head, throw some wires coming out. If you're gonna do some weathering, where is it gonna get weathered the most? It's all about common sense. And that'll make it look closer to the thing you may be trying to emulate from online. So, realistically.
With that, we've kind of given everything we can. We have a quick little raffle that does everybody have a ticket for those that came in on time? Yep. We've got some stuff, San Japan provided some stuff for us. We even have a kit to give away as well. Out of Dustin Bill personal collection. He's never gonna build it.
Yeah. Actually, I went and got it for this.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
What's the phrase we've been using? It's not a mistake.
It's not a mistake, it's art.
It's not a mistake. It's art.
I have to remember that
It's
now.
not a mistake. It's art.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
Bob Ross method.
We
Yeah.
had our Bob Ross jokes. We were late.
Thank you, Chris, for your valued input.
And then again, we do have our table set up downstairs. Come by, say hi. We're here all weekend. We'll go over some other stuff. We'll let you pick up and mess with my kids and figure it out and see what it really looks like. The camera's crap. That's my fault. San Japan, I rushed it. I'll have a better one next year.
Shoot, we'll bring a couple more things tomorrow.
Yeah.
And one of our members that's holding down the table right now brought some of his built and painted and weathered kits, and there's some really neat stuff in there. There really
There's
is.
some cool things. If you haven't seen it yet, come by and see it.
There's one that he made it to look like a Gundam standing atop of a Mayan statue, and he painted it with like texture paint that you can get from Walmart to make it look like stone. And he painted the bottom parts of the kit like that too. It looks really neat. He's got some really neat stuff. But
It's in the box behind you.
okay,
I'll put all the
okay, cool.
accordion sleepy playing around with earlier.
Okay, so
Now we got a bunch of weird stuff. Usually we try and help with some model kits. The flat lines have been garbage and abysmal, so we don't have that. And we also waited too long. So they provided us with some stuff. We've got shirts, a fun little card game, which I don't even know. It's a game of deduction. Can make me panic. Has anybody heard of that? Somebody today will take it home and learn how to play it. And they're going to love it.
or they'll take it home and then bring it to a white elephant gift exchange. Or the exchange on Sunday. That is also valid.
You go to that and
If you get this and you don't like it, and then you don't go to the swap meet, that's on you. That's all I'm saying. If you don't like this stuff, it's swap meet fodder. I'm sorry. That's all I'm saying.
they also provided us with, actually, these are kind of cool. These are metal bookmarks, but they work great as straight edges for writing down panel lines.
And they're nice and shiny, so they're hard to miss.
We've got some of the best. Here's we got Food Wars, and then Monster Meets Squid. That says a lot about this crowd here that they're like, oh yeah. These are my people. These are my people.
All right, so we'll go in order. So first ticket he's going to pull out is going to be for this green T-shirt, whatever the heck it is. Next up, hero. Whatever.
Next up, hero.
Sure, whatever that is. Nextuphero.com.
It almost sounds like a My Hero Academia thing. That's what we're going to pretend it is. Are they all 7 on ones? Okay, it's going to be last 3 are 104. 104? No? 104? And yes? Yes? Hey! I'll come to you, don't worry. You know, I'm going to put a t-shirt can next to me. They're not going to let me do that.
Why not?
T-shirt can. Thank you.
You gotta have fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm happy with it, but they're not going to let me. Right.
I wish I had the shirt can, but I don't. So, and he won't let me through it. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
1, 2, 6. Game local. 1, 2, 6. 1, 2, 6. Going once, twice. Nope. All right.
Cool.
1, 2, 2. Oh, the far 122. It's 123.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, it's 124. I'm gonna go for
No,
the lottery
no,
now.
no,
Wait, 123. Who had 123?
Or 122.
What? 122? Wait, what?
Yeah.
Who had 126, 122, 122?
122?
122.
Yeah. Okay.
My goodness. Raise the voices.
Thank you.
Justin, you wanna grab one? Grab a
Amazing
ticket.
golf claps. I appreciate it.
Your turn, Justin.
All right, sure. Pick up a ticket. Doop-a-doop-a-doop. All right, who has 118? All right, there you go. Cool. You also get a Game Global shirt.
Wait, who
Awesome.
has 118? Oh,
Bing.
hey. Oh, you're the resident guy.
Yeah, here we go.
We know our
This one says observer. You got a stalker, basically. Yeah. I hope not. 135.
135.
Going once, going twice. Unsold. Okay.
Come on.
Next one is
They pick you up a little bit.
128.
128. No?
No? Okay, cool. Pick another one. Man, you guys are just hit or miss, man.
134. 134. Nope. All right. 090. Hey!
There we go. Okay.
I like this. Gentle talent. Wait, for me or him?
Yes.
Oh,
The
nothing.
answer is yes. Okay.
Oh, wait.
So,
I want to wait. Let's do that one next to the moon gunner.
okay, cool. All right.
You get that? We'll do,
Okay.
We'll do the 3 words.
Okay. 133.
133. 133. No.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because it's about to come back.
102. Ah, all right.
You get
You
a
get the
bookmark.
bookmark.
And you get a bookmark. Everyone gets
Actually, they're really nice.
Well, not everyone. Like, we only have one. So, all right. Go with Monster Musume. 107. Bada bing. There you go. You get a bookmark.
107?
Yes, sir.
107.
Yeah. I love you guys so much. Just not sure whether the clap. It's amazing. It's awesome. You guys are the greatest. You guys are the best crowd I've ever had. Here's another one. 084.
084.
Bada bing. There you go. All right. This is the last of the bookmarks, and it is going to be 116.
Yeah.
There you go.
116. All right. We're just on top. We'll do the golf clap.
You guys are amazing. I love you so much. Okay. So
Next one, I
what?
want jazz snaps for the next one.
Oh my God. I'll do it. Don't tempt me. And I'm loud no matter what I do. So, both of these together are just. Okay.
We're gonna do the white elephant card game.
Yeah. Okay.
094. All right.
There you go. And last but not least, just so you guys know, I literally picked this up for this panel just because it is a very well-engineered kit. Anybody that gets it, I haven't even built it. I just talked to a person that builds kits just because that's what he likes, and it's one of the best engineered high grades he's ever built. There's someone saying yes.
The Moon Gundam is one of the best high grades ever. It's like a real grade and high grade 4.
It's still easy to build, but the details and the mechanics are just phenomenal.
And 131. Once 131. Twice.
So, awesome. Pick another one.
You let our glorious cameraman pick.
Yeah. The number is 108. 108. There you go. Congrats.
You did it.
You did it. You won the thing somehow.
All right.
No effort of your own.
So again,
Amazing.
thank you for attending. It's always great to see people come out and want to share in the hobby. Come by, see us at our table, visit the Otaku Cafe store. Where are you guys looking? No, I mean,
No,
well, the new
here.
address.
We're actually located on the second floor of the Grand Hyatt, opposite end of where the rave is being held.
Okay, so opposite end of the rave, on the second floor of the Grand Hyatt, you can find the pop-up Rick Otaku Cafe store. They've got snacks, they've got collectibles. What's that? Boy room. In the boy room. Visit them at their new location off of Bandera Road. They moved, it's bigger, it's awesome. And again, see us at our table. But remember, leaving, it's not a, what is it? It's not a mistake? It's art. It's art.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I kind of want I feel that.
Yeah. Got an hour. Thanks for coming out. I'll see you tomorrow, okay?